If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. There's a saying among the dominant society that the news is the first draft of history. Well, as Napoleon Bonaparte once said, history is a lie agreed upon. That's certainly what it's been under white supremacy. So that explains perfectly so much of what we see and what we don't see. And when it comes to media, we as black people, we are playing with fire when we call ourselves listening to any of the stuff that comes from the dominant society. You see, as black people, we are hideously oversampled when it comes to our TV and movie viewing habits. Oversampled, by the way, means that a disproportionate number of us tend to watch a lot of television and a lot of movies, and that usually means white media, because black folks at the grassroots are putting out precious little of our own, though that is changing slowly but surely. But there's something you need to be aware of. It is not some victimless crime when you call yourself opening your eyes and hence your mind to the propaganda that comes from the white supremacist media. What would the world look like? What would the landscape look like if it wasn't for the black media? Well, for example, there's this website that shall go unnamed that tries to call itself the black media. And apparently their little tag is no gossips, no rumors, no negativity, no intelligence. And mostly what they're dealing with, this is somebody who clearly thinks that they're going to set up the next Blavity, some sort of stupid entertainment-based website. And I guess they hope that they're going to get bought out by somebody, but that ain't happening no time soon. But if you want to know what it would be like without the black media, what would be the voice claiming to speak for you? Well, here's what the so-called, these people who would love to try to brand themselves the black media, trying to find a way to steal the mantle from us and having failed in the process. Here's what they think you need to know and what you need to see. Why RuPaul's AJ and the Queen TV show is needed in Trump's America. This is what they put out back in January 2020. RuPaul's AJ and the Queen TV show is needed in Trump's America. Imagine that. You got the white supremacists on a tear running roughshod over people. And what does this website trying to brand itself the black media say? They say that the solution to Trump and his white supremacist minions is a black man running around in a dress. By the way, that's not my words, that's their words. AJ and the Queen is a brilliant story about a drag queen who discovers what he believes is a little boy, in reality a misfit little girl, and the two of them travel around the country touching the lives of many. So basically you got a drag queen taking their show on the road. And of course, because of the fact that we want to make sure that we get it out there very early that children can't really be sure of themselves, especially when it comes to gender. Why, you have no idea who or what you are. You should be completely and thoroughly unsure of yourself from an early age. Well, here's a little boy who's in reality a little girl. You know, when I was growing up as a member of Generation X, there was one of those self-help books that was really big in the 70s, I think it was, called I'm Okay, You're Okay. It was big for a little while. Well, if that book was written today, they'd have to call it I'm Screwed Up and So Are You. There is something wrong with a media that tries to instill a fundamental insecurity in people, especially among the young. We should be reinforcing who they are. We should be reinforcing that there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine exactly the way that you are. Instead, there are those people who, for their own reasons, have decided, no, we need people to be insecure with themselves. And yes, we are getting around to Issa Rae. We need people to look at themselves and I don't know who I am. Well, I'm just so unsure. Yeah, that way you can have the white media tell them. For their own purposes, of course. But this little piece goes on to say, unfortunately, Trump's America allows for racism, sexism, and homophobia to rear its ugly head too often in the media. Yeah, because there was no racism, sexism, or homophobia in the media before 2016, right? Yeah, I mean, there was no racism or sexism, especially racism, because that's the only thing that's relevant to us. Oh, no, that stuff didn't exist until Donald Trump came along, right? But nothing shuts up a homophobic, racist bigot like a 6'4", 59-year-old black drag queen, I always say. Listen to this idiocy. First of all, they put homophobic first. America's cardinal sin is not homophobia. It ain't sexism. America's cardinal sin is one thing and one thing only: anti-black racism. And when you call yourself putting something ahead of racism, especially anti-black racism, then you are out of order. This is supposed to be a group whose little website trying to call themselves the black media. And just like these other white media fronts, all they're really doing is repping everybody except for black people. But hey, look at this. What are we going to do about Donald Trump and his white supremacist marauders as they carve a path of carnage across the country? What are we going to do? Why? We're going to bring out RuPaul in a dress with a little white girl, masquerading as a white boy, I should say. And that somehow we're going to have them travel around the country touching the lives of people. Yeah, because nothing touches people's heartstrings quite like a black man running around trying to look like Carmen Miranda. A 59-year-old black man wearing a dress. He's at freaking retirement age, and this is what he's doing in what's supposed to be your wisdom years. And how many white supremacists, by the way, has the drag queen of any persuasion taken out of circulation? Did you see any of the white supremacist mob who stormed the Capitol on January 6th saying that they were scared of drag queens? You see any drag queens taking action against them? Where the hell was RuPaul then? You know, when the so-called Patriot Front called themselves going to Philadelphia earlier this year, they got run off the block. And it wasn't the drag queens or the LGBTQAI who did it. It was cisgendered heterosexual black men who forced those white supremacists to run for the hills. And none of them was wearing a dress. None of them was running around saying, I need to have some little white child who I can have as my sidekick or have as my little partner. And we're going to touch the lives of people across the country. That's not what they were talking about. They were talking about we're going to secure our piece of the world and make sure these white supremacists understand you don't get to come up in here. None of them was talking about intersectionality. And none of them was trying to touch the hearts of the dominant society. Gee, I guess that's the reason why they were actually effective. But you see, that's the whole point. You need a black media that's actually going to talk about what will hurt white supremacy, what will harm white supremacy, not a bunch of clowns who are acting as nothing more than a thinly veiled mouthpiece for white supremacy. You see, we're not talking about taking up a submissive posture in front of white supremacy, or trying to find a way to present ourselves as being unthreatening to white supremacy, which is what so much of this alternative lifestyle culture that some black people have chosen to adopt is really about. If you have a black man who is trying to present himself as anything other than a threat to white supremacy, then that's a black man who ain't worthy to be called a man because he's surrendered. What he's doing is he's saying, I'm not a threat. I'll put on a dress so that you can see me as a woman. I'm going to basically cut off my manhood so that you don't have to fear a next generation of black males to threaten you. And better than that, after I get through castrating myself, I'll put on a dress and bunk over so that I can be used by whomever. I'll just degrade myself to the nth degree. No, that's the reason why the white supremacists, they have no problem with that kind of thing. RuPaul does not threaten white supremacy, which is the reason why you don't see them talking about him. He's irrelevant to white supremacy. Hell, he encourages white supremacy. They're looking and going, heck, if this is the level of resistance we can expect, these Negroes are ours for the taking. Then they come to Philadelphia and they run into some real ones. And they're like, where the hell's the dresses at? Didn't see any wigs at all. This is supposed to be who the white media, and I'm not even going to bother to look and see who the world was putting any money behind this failed would-be attempt to try to find a way to take our name and take our title. We are the black media. Accept, no substitute. It's going to take a hell of a lot more than some clown who calls himself buying a domain name, and apparently they think that that's going to be enough for them to supplant us. If Roly-Poly couldn't do it, if Mark Lamont, you big dummy Hill, couldn't do it, you ain't doing it either. But there's too many black folks willing to prostitute themselves, especially if they think that there's going to be some attention from the dominant society in it for them. But just understand, if you don't have the Professor Black Truths and the Jason Blacks and the Tariq Nasheeds, and if you don't have the Tarian Rains and the Vicky Dillards and the others, this is what you're going to wind up with. This will be who says that they're speaking for you. If you do not have the black media, the real black media, if you don't have us, then what you're going to be getting is a straightforward trust the Democrats line. In other words, trust the left arm of white supremacy, whose job is to get you to sit on your hands while the white right pummels you into oblivion. That's what you're going to get. And you're going to get these pathetic, submissive gestures. Oh, well, what should black people do about racism? We should all dress up as drag queens and find some white child to be our chaperone as we go across the country, touching the lives of many. Yeah, that's going to be the solution for white supremacy. Putting on a dress and doing a drag queen show across America. Apparently, that's how you defeat white supremacy. That's how you defeat the white supremacists. You certainly don't fight them. That's for sure. Oh, no, you definitely don't want to be fighting the white supremacists. We should instead be trying to do, well, something else. Something else other than defending yourself. Something else other than putting maximum pressure on the white supremacists. Something other than presenting white supremacy with maximum threat. Okay, and after you have every black man in America putting on a dress and finding some white child to be their chaperone, what's the point? Where does this lead? Where is this going? Oh, if we're going to be putting the whole drag queen scene at the forefront of black America, to what purpose? Where's this leading? Where's this going to? What is this supposed to produce? It doesn't produce anything. It goes nowhere, and that's the entire point. The situation that white supremacy has presented us with, we don't have time for any useless gestures. And yet that's what this so-called would-be, wannabe black media website is putting forward. Oh, they're being bold about this. Full-fledged attempt to try to find out if they can supplant us. By the way, haven't seen any postings from these clowns in a long, long while, so apparently this little vanity project ran out of steam. But it's good to kick these guys after they've gone defunct. And they're not the only ones. Oh yeah, so much of the old dead black media, their husks littering the landscape, and these new attempts to give rise to some would-be, some substitute for us, well, that stuff is withering on the vine. Ain't nobody going for it. But that's only the case so long as you continue to stay engaged and supportive of the black media, the real black media. Now, I'm sure that over the last couple of days, you've heard about Barack Obama's empty little brain farts regarding September 11th. I'm sure that you've seen the white media giving him a little bit of attention and him lapping up every iota of it. HBO has decided this would be a good time to go ahead and drop an Obama documentary. Oh yeah, it's time for us to go ahead and do a little bit of image rehab on Barack Obama. Not because they care about Barack Obama, but because they care about what hopefully he might represent to some gullible black folks who are a little bit slow on the uptake and don't realize the con game that's going on or don't want to have to face up to it or are hoping that if they can just find some Democrat shill, we're going to vote Democrat our way to power. That don't work. Power is something you do for yourself. Nobody's going to give it to you. Power is only on the ballot if you put it on the ballot. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer damn sure ain't doing it. But HBO, the same toilet bowl that gave us Issa Rae with Insecure and so much other anti-black garbage, well, they've decided to put out a Obama documentary. And although I'm not the biggest booster of the Jacobin website, I did find that they at least had the most concise takedown of it that actually hit the major points. that basically Barack Obama is going to be getting what amounts to a sloppy kiss from HBO. This is part of what the white media's devil's bargain with him is. For a lot of these fools, if you're a black person who they think that they might be able to get some use out of, they're going to go ahead and praise you, or at least pretend to praise you. But as we've always taught you, if you see the white media praising some black person, that's because that black person is seen as being useful to them for the moment. When the time comes, they'll go ahead and tear old Barry Soweto apart when the time comes, and the time always comes. Absolutely no examination of Barack Obama's presidency has any legitimacy unless you're talking about the black community. Unless you're talking about that, it has no legitimacy whatsoever. And this so-called documentary largely tries to gloss over it, except to the extent that it tries to say, oh, Barack Obama, you black folks should be glad that the Democrats put him on the ballot. Oh, don't you people feel so much better about yourselves? Oh, don't you feel so uplifted? Black media has been telling you about Barack Obama for over a decade now. TBA was the one who popularized the phrase that the first black woman that Barack Obama had run around with was also the only one he's ever been with, Michelle Obama. Now, this documentary gives a blink and you'll miss it mention that a black friend at prep school said that he and Barack Obama would speculate about which of the white girls would be willing to date them. And of course, there was his unsuccessful marriage proposal to Sheila Miyoshi Yeager. Oh yeah, that's Barack Obama for you, but it's a matter of, well, we don't talk about that, and the reason why, of course, is by having his mascot, his beard, whatever you want to call it, Michelle Obama, that was meant largely for the benefit of black women in particular. So you could see a dark-skinned black woman standing beside him and think to yourselves, oh, thank God he's biracial, but she isn't, and I got a chance and I can live vicariously through her. We won't ask what it is that she believes or what she stands for, or whether or not she's going to be having her husband do anything. We're going to live vicariously through these two like some twisted version of a soap opera. But nobody's asking questions about who the world Barack Obama was running around sleeping with. He was shacking up with white women as much as the day is long, but when it comes time for him to become a public man, then all of a sudden, well, here comes Michelle Obama. And what is the reaction of the black community to this little factoid whenever it comes up? Don't know. Documentary never says. Jacobin Peace goes on to note that in 1996, Adolph Reed wrote about Obama's first election for the Village Voice. In Chicago, for instance, we've gotten a foretaste of the new breed of foundation-hatched black communitarian voices. One of them a smooth Harvard lawyer with impeccable do-good credentials and vacuous to repressive neoliberal politics has won a state Senate seat on a base mainly in the liberal foundation and development worlds. Yeah, see, this is where people like Bill Ayers come in. All them little white liberals that Barack Obama was running around with back in the day. These are the people who selected this clown. These are people who put the battery in his back and he's been doing their bidding. He's a meat puppet for them and always has been. Though I do find it interesting that Reed went on to note, and this is back in 1996, 25 years ago, I suspect that his ilk is the wave of the future in U.S. black politics, as in Haiti and wherever else the International Monetary Fund has sway. Very interesting. See, the International Monetary Fund is supposed to be about foreign countries. And yet, when it comes to these black politicians in the U.S., you find that there's an internal component to all this. Same kind of stuff that they do in foreign countries, they do right here at home. Hell, this is the place where they created and perfected and fine-tuned the very methods that they would take overseas. You see, when this Reed guy is talking about foundation-hatched black politicians, he's talking about the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council, among others. These so-called liberal think tanks, where they coach their chosen tools like Obama and Stacey Abrams and Andrew Gillum and Kamala Harris on what to say and what policies to back and which policies to avoid. Reparations, anyone? Punish the police, anyone? It's no accident that these guys stay away from it like the plague. The white Democrats, they'll give mention to it, but them black ones, you can tell that they're terrified to even speak about it because they've been told and warned what would happen if they tried. Every time you confront Kamala Harris on her record of backing and supporting police brutality against black people, she immediately retreats and lapses into her lying, stale, shop-worn talking points about how the community would always come to her whenever someone was killed. That's a fairy tale. Didn't nobody come to her raggedy behind. People always wanted to see Kamala. I want to talk to Kamala. You know, whenever some angry Karen is going on a tirade or throwing a temper tantrum in the Walmart, she wants to see the manager too, but it's not to praise them. But you see, with Kamala Harris, she's just showing that whole community-oriented rhetoric that these black meat puppets for these white liberals have been pushing, it's nothing new. This is what these guys have been told to say, because the truth of the matter is, in the old days, what happened was you used to have to find some street corner punk, usually out of the clergy, who you could have to mislead black folks. But as there's been a groundswell of black people at the grassroots making it clear, we're going to start fielding our own candidates. We're going to start acting in our own interest. Well, what happens is you're going to need somebody who's a little bit slicker, somebody who the white media will heap praise on. And the whole deal is you have a contingent of people in the United States, inside the U.S., black people, who came out of slavery in this country. And the political threat that we pose to white supremacy happens to be that we're going to overturn it and destabilize it. Well, you got to get them to toe the line, at least until the economic strangulation of this group is complete. And how do you do that? How do you get them to sit on their hands? Well, if the white Democrats are unable to do so, then what you do is you start flooding them with aspirational people who they can try to live through vicariously. And this is where Barack Obama and his ilk come into play. Now, the author of the Jacobin piece goes on to write, the relevant part of Obama in pursuit of a more perfect union doesn't provide a more sympathetic alternate account of that state Senate election because Kuhnhart couldn't care less about the political content of the race or of Obama's election to the U.S. Senate in 2004 or even his later run for presidency. He's interested in Obama's challenges and ultimate success in convincing black voters that he felt at home in black American culture. He's interested in the question of whether Obama was running for the Senate before it was his turn. We're left to guess what Obama told those voters he could do for them or how it might have been different from what his opponents said. Now, that's something that needs to be focused on. The documentary was interested in Obama's challenges and success in conning black voters, the gullible, silly ones, into thinking that he felt at home in black American culture. But we are left to guess what Obama told those voters that he would do for them. Well, I can go ahead and answer that piece for the Jacobin website. He didn't say he was going to do a damn thing for black people. What he did was he told black folks, you are the change you've been waiting for. He said hope and change and other empty words. And then he sang a couple of bars of Al Green. That's what he did for black folks. What did he say he would do for black people? Nothing, not a damn thing. How was it different from what his opponents said? Well, it was the same thing his opponents said. Except the difference was he's told black folks this would be a huge step forward. It was a huge step forward for him. But for black people in this country, it was a huge step backwards. Every white supremacist from California to New York understood clearly that when Barack Obama became president, he was not going to challenge them or take them on or punish them. They understood that he was far more interested in political ladder climbing, mountain climbing, trying to get to the top of the hill for himself. Barack Obama made it manifestly clear that his entire purpose was complete and thorough self-interest. And that when it came time to deal with white supremacy, well, all he was thinking about was his legacy. But his legacy was going to be to stay in the good graces of the dominant society. That would be Barack Obama's self-imposed mission. And black people could say whatever they wanted, but if black people were silly enough to support him, well, what that meant was ultimately black people had been neutralized as an opposing force to white supremacy. The kind of opposition you would get would be largely confused. That's the reason why you use people like a Barack Obama or a Stacey Abrams or a Kamala Harris. You do stuff like that in order to confuse the internal politics of your opponents. You try to get somebody who can claim that they've got something in common with them. And because they've got something in common, well, you shouldn't do anything about these people over here who are oppressing you. Why, I'll go and talk to them. Or in the case of Kamala Harris, you know, you're just wrong altogether. In the case of Barack Obama, they're a bunch of thugs, I tell you. And that's meant to confuse the internal politics of these groups. That's why it's important whenever you have any sort of colonization or any sort of mass suppression or repression that's going to take place, you need to make sure that you get a few of the folks who you intend to dominate. Make sure you get a few of them who are going to be on board, because they're going to be the ones who help to confuse the rest of them, or at least try to undermine the rest of them. Why, nobody who's actually on the list of the people to be subjugated, they would never actually go along with this oppression, would they? Ask Larry Elders. He's made a freaking career out of it. So for those of you who haven't seen the HBO documentary, don't worry. I'm pretty sure that between Mark Lamont, you big dummy, Hill, and Roly-Poly Martin, and Ava DuVernay and the rest of the clowns who are looking for these Negro shills who are looking for a job, I'm sure that they'll go ahead and catch you up on it, but there's nothing to see. The black vote in Obama is basically what this is about. Obama, black folks sure did love him, didn't they? Yeah, the white media trying to patch up Obama's black cred after the fact. 2016 proved that black voters were sick of Obama and his do-nothing policies for black people. And this complete outrage on our part manifested itself in black people destabilizing the carefully and precariously balanced fraud of the American political duopoly. Our refusal to vote in 2016 made it possible for an unvarnished white supremacist to become president. That wasn't supposed to happen, by the way. The United States image, its position in the world, is a fraud. The U.S. white media carpet bombs the world in all sorts of images and fairy tales about an egalitarian, largely colorblind, or at the very least, color uninterested America that never actually existed. Carefully curating what little cherry-picked snippets that they choose to put out in front of the world. Abraham Lincoln said that America is the world's last best hope. First of all, he's talking about the white world, because Abraham Lincoln also said that he didn't believe in the equality of the races, that he would see the superior position assigned to the white man. So much for your great liberator. But the white media always puts forward the lie that, okay, well, there was slavery, but we dealt with that with the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, there was Jim Crow, but, you know, we dealt with that with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Okay, well, there was segregation and such. We dealt with that with Brown versus Board. Okay, there was all of this employment discrimination, all the rest of it. But, you know, Dr. King had a dream, and there were a couple of laws in 64 and 65. That's the con that they put forward. And they try to use black people as being the ones who certify and endorse that this fraud is somehow valid, that we are going to validate their lies. And what happened was, last few years, black folks were making it clear, Jesse Jackson doesn't get to validate anything. Al Sharpton don't get to validate a damn thing. Donna Brazile and Roly-Poly Martin and the rest of these bought and paid for shills and Negro meat puppets, they don't get to validate a damn thing. Black folks are saying this is what the real is. The whole damn world saw that. You see, if you're going to eliminate the political threat that black people, that the 50 million ex-slaves represent to this country, then the first thing you got to do is you got to make sure the rest of the world looks and says that whatever happens to these people is going to basically be above board. After all, there's no racism, so if these people burn out of existence, well, it was just some sort of historical social oddity. Imagine that. These guys just kind of all vanished and disappeared, and, white supremacy marches on. That's what they were hoping to have happen. We raised a lot of holy hell. Now the world's looking and going, okay, we noticed what's happening in the U.S. again. Hey, say, you don't think that all those movies and miniseries and documentaries that the U.S. has been putting out, you don't suppose that's just been a pack of lies, do you, by any chance? Yeah, that's the power that we've got, the power to disprove the white media's lies. The lie of American progress on race has been laid bare for the world to see, and there was no counter-argument to it. This is a problem for the Democrats, too, because the white media fiction was that America was becoming more inclusive and slowly but surely addressing racial inequality, particularly against black people. And we showed that that was a lie, the lie that we've always said it was. That's the reason why I got problems when you see these black folks running around after January 6th saying, the heart of democracy, the heart of democracy. You're sitting here talking about a democracy that black people have never enjoyed. A democracy that we've never experienced. That's some of that damned our and we talk. Malcolm warned you about that. Got some house Negro running around talking about our house, our country, our democracy. We were attacked. Yes, these meat puppets are lying, but they'll wind up ruling the day simply by default, unless we speak in a voice loud enough to be heard. The Jacobin piece goes on to write that Kuhnhardt's relentless emphasis is on what the documentary calls the politics of race. Even there, though, he's only interested in an extremely limited conception of the problem. If a Harvard professor is arrested for trying to enter his own house and Obama finds himself entangled in the subsequent controversy, or if an Obama administration official is fired after Breitbart misleadingly edits a video of her comments about white people, we'll get a detailed play-by-play. What we won't hear is, say, the effect the Obama administration's policies had on black foreclosure rates. The strong implication is that the solution to race-related maladies in U.S. society is for role models like Barack Obama to inspire young black Americans to be confident about what they can individually achieve. Now look, I'm not here to endorse anybody's website or what have you. The Jacobin, this is not a need for me to give any sort of disclaimers or what have you. If it ain't coming from us, you already know that we got the requisite amount of suspicion about it. But I thought that it was well stated that basically this is a large part of the problem with any documentary about Barack Obama attempting to put forward the idea that he helped move American race relations forward. You got to talk about the fact that he didn't promise black folks a damn thing, didn't produce anything for black people, and that his policies hurt black people. But then again, he wasn't there for black people. He was there for himself. And of course, his presidency and the phony, empty praise that the white media attempts to heap on it, it's all meant to reinforce the lie that what's the solution to black people's problems in America? Well, what they just need is good role models like Barack Obama to inspire young black Americans about what they can individually achieve. Black people are not being oppressed as individuals. We're oppressed as a group. We are facing group oppression, not individual oppression. One black person who becomes editor of the Harvard Law Review don't mean a damn thing. Another black person over here who gets put on some board with a nice little patronage job don't mean a damn thing. It is what is happening at the group level that matters. And Barack Obama did absolutely nothing that would help black people at the group level. In fact, he reinforced that black people don't need group help. Basically, he came up with a very slightly more sanitized version of the old bootstrap speech. Because when black folks took to the streets to fight for their freedom, Barack Obama, he did make a group statement. He said they were thugs. Hey, how about the criminals in blue running around with guns killing black folks? What about them? Oh, well, we need to have a blue alert executive order. That's what we need. So Barack Obama is not being held up by HBO because they like the guy. They can't stand him. But what they do think is we got to keep up the steady drumbeat telling black folks, you need to be more like Barack Obama. Oh, those Republicans, they didn't like Barack Obama. The Republicans don't like black people in general. There's a lot of folks the Republicans don't like. So when you say that he didn't like Barack Obama, so what? There are a lot of Republicans who don't like other Republicans. That don't mean a damn thing. Is that supposed to make me think to myself, well, Obama can't be all bads. I mean, the Republicans don't like him. That kind of stupid asinine talking point, that's good enough for the Michael Eric dumbasses, or for the Mark Lamont Shills, or for the Roly-Poly Martins, or for the A-dunce crowd. It might be good enough for them, but for those of us over here with an IQ higher than our shoe size, that don't hit on nothing. But you see that it doesn't matter if it's a TV show with RuPaul running around, or if it's a so-called documentary with Barack Obama, the white media makes sure to reinforce the same point. What should black people be doing when it comes to fighting for our empowerment, and when it comes to white supremacy in America? What should black people's response be? Well, on the one hand, you can be like Barack Obama and try to find as many white girls to sleep with, until you find yourself a black woman with at least a acceptable amount of melanin who you can use for your photo ops. And then you can go ahead and put policies on the books that harm black people while you try to seek higher amounts of money in the form of speaking fees for yourself, because this is the cost you got to pay in order to get that. To secure your future, you make sure to destroy black people's futures as a group. And on the other hand, you can go ahead and emulate RuPaul and go around the country with a little white child as you try to touch the lives of as many people as possible. Those are the solutions to white supremacy. Emulate a largely self-hating, counterproductive tool of white supremacy who masqueraded as a black leader, or you can run around doing a drag queen show. This is how you defeat white supremacy. Feel good about Barack Obama and what he achieved for himself. Or you can run around and start your own on-the-road freelance drag queen show. This is how you fight white supremacy. This is how the white media is putting forth. These are the things that they put on a pedestal and that they push and that they praise, and they want you to see it. But what about fighting white supremacy? Hell, what about even calling white supremacy out? Ooh, that's radical stuff, that's radical stuff. And as we've seen in New York, and as we've seen in Ohio, well, those voters, they aren't liking all that radical stuff. So you better go ahead and you better make sure that your dress is neatly pressed, and make sure that your wig has been freshly washed, and also make sure you got your Rolodex with Bill Ayers or whatever white leftist or whatever people from these white foundations and these liberal foundations that you need to have on speed dial. Make sure that you got them ready to answer their call, and that's what you need to focus on. And finally, I want to talk about something that I posted earlier today on my Twitter feed. Rose McGowan, who last we saw her, she was taking her Botox behind on a little stage tour for Me Too or Time's Up or whomever. Oh, she went from holding hands with Tarana Burke to now she's holding hands with Larry Elders, and she's attacking Black Lives Matters. I tell you about these white washed up actresses. Oh yeah, after they hit a certain age and that phone stops ringing and their agent can't get them a guest spot in a dog food commercial. Oh yeah, they bring out their other little acting repertoire, which is the Karen. Yeah, these old washed up white actresses, they always got the same little bag of tricks. McGowan's running around saying that the governor of California's wife tried to get her not to say anything about Harvey Weinstein. Give me a break. Just like the rest of these broads over there in Tinseltown, you didn't have to tell Rose McGowan not to say anything about Harvey Weinstein. Hell, they deal with disgusting white men day in and day out. As long as that white man's able to help their career, they're fine with it. It's the cost of doing business. But as soon as that phone stops ringing and they feel like I'm getting screwed out of my end, then all of a sudden, sexual harassment, there's more than one way for me to get money out of you. But Weinstein's cooling his heels in prison right now, and apparently he might have another trial coming up in California. And that being the case, I guess Rose McGowan's looking and saying, well, all that insurance money that AIG or whomever was paying out to Weinstein's victims, there's nothing left for me. So what the hell am I going to do? Well, apparently this is her plan B, C, D, E, and everything else. This is what she came up with. And it's no accident that this woman went and found the biggest anti-black mouthpiece moron that she could possibly stand beside. I guess she figured that with Trump put out to pasture, there was no room for her. So this is the best that she could come up with. But it was no accident that she chose Larry Elder in particular. Oh, yeah, just like Kirstie Alley before her. Kirstie Alley used to talk about, how she liked black men. Yeah, she was overweight and the phone wasn't ringing. But of course, when she realized that wasn't going anywhere and she really missed having people actually mention her name for something other than being overweight, then all of a sudden now Kirstie Alley's running around being some right-wing flamethrower. And Rose McGowan, apparently she's realizing that whatever little make work projects that she had been promised. You know how when the whole Time's Up thing blew up 4 years ago, Rose McGowan thought to herself that some of those empty little promises that she was given from the studios, which was just to get some headlines, by the way, she actually thought that stuff was going to happen. Well, it didn't. Spoiler, I can't believe that the studios would lie. And now we see old Rose, the bloom is off the rose to be sure. Now she's running around with Larry Elders. She's attacking Black Lives Matters. I don't know what the hell this is about. Does she think to herself that she's going to get herself a job on Fox News? Hey, that's usually the white woman's plan C, when all else fails. Just take whatever the hell you can get. Acting, I don't need something acting. I just need to be on TV or something. I got some bills coming up. That's what Rose McGowan's doing these days. And where is Tarana Burke while all this is going on? Because you see, you got this white woman who goes from holding hands with a black woman who pretended that she somehow was sympathetic to black people in any shape, form, or fashion. Now all of a sudden you got Rose McGowan, who is making it very clear, Black Lives Matters. I'm not with that at all. We don't need to be labeling each other. We need to be human first. Now, that's very telling. Human first. Yeah. We need to be human first. In other words, white, because that's what white supremacy has successfully defined human as. Human, American. That means white. Because the problem happens to be for black folks, we have been touting our humanity nonstop for 500 years, and it ain't meant a damn thing. So she needs to be giving this speech to all them little white supremacists, particularly the ones who are backing Larry Elders. That's who the hell she needs to be giving that speech to, and say, you know what, instead of attacking black people, you need to be understanding that black people are human beings too, and that you are committing crimes against humanity when you attack black people. Now, I want to see, now that Rose McGowan has decided that she's going to try her newest attention-whoring stunt, I want to see what happens with Time's Up. What happens with Me Too? What happens with all of these clowns who had been pretending as if they were feminists and such? Because it's always great to hear these feminists talk about, my feminism is about the environment, and my feminism is about LGBTQ, and my feminism is about the economy, and blah, 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 blah. But as soon as you start talking about some white woman who's being racist, all of a sudden there is no variant, there is no variation, there is no possible version of white feminism, or any feminism for that matter, that seems to incorporate taking on white supremacy and especially calling out these white women who are promoting it and pushing it. There never seems to be a version of feminism that ever incorporates that. My feminism is about destroying white supremacy. Nah, that ain't what happens. You can have Tamika Mallory or whomever try to pretend as if they're waving that flag, but as soon as Tamika Mallory got a little bit too prominent, they said, what's this about Louis Farrakhan and Tamika Mallory? That was just basically to degrade her and make it very clear. Now that we've put this cloud over her head, she starts calling herself getting too much shine, too much attention. We'll just go ahead and bring up Louis Farrakhan's name, and that'll let everybody know this Tamika Mallory woman, unless she has a white woman who's endorsing her or that she's standing next to, you can go ahead and dismiss her. That's how they handle these black feminists. Oh yeah, as more and more pressure is put on the position of the dominant society, as their position becomes more and more questionable, now that they're having some doubts about it, what's happening is a whole lot of folk who you thought were somehow cool with you. Hey, I told you that the real test was going to be when all of these so-called white liberals and all these white folks who have been pretending as if they were somehow amenable and agreeable with black folks, when they started seeing that black people were actually able to exercise influence over white people, particularly to punish them, then you were going to be finding out what your white pals really thought. And what you're seeing real fast is they're running for the freaking X as far as they're concerned. Oh, this is a threat to humanity. I tell you, a threat to humanity. By the way, Rose McGowan won't be the only one. There'll be others. She'll have plenty of others in that clown car with her. But understand that black media is bringing the heat, but you got to make sure that there's fuel to do it with. You are the ones who are the force multiplier. Either you're going to crush white supremacy out of existence, or it's going to crush you out of existence. There is no road in between. So you better make sure that you commit 110% to this course of action. What's it going to be? Because the alternative is that you'll try to find out if there's some long-legged white socialist looking for a date like Barack Obama was back in the day. Or if all else fails, you can try to figure out what size dress fits you. And if there happen to be any young white kids who might want to go on the road with you so you can see how many hearts that you touch. But I got to tell you, just keep in mind, you're going to be out there in the same kind of country with people like Rose McGowan, with people like Larry Elder, with people like Patriot Front. So if you're thinking to yourself that maybe you can go ahead and touch the hearts of those people in those little hamlets and towns across the country, well, you might want to take some personal protection with you. Just saying.